Hi, and welcome to the Telescope Clinic brought to you by the Madison Astronomical Society. My name is Chris Zeltner. I'm a 20-year member and a current board member. And we would like to show you tonight some of the different telescopes that we as club members have and give you a nice feel for the range of equipment that you can wind up with and use to do astronomy. So some of it's big, some of it's small. You can go any way you want. There is a PDF online that has all the facts and figures about our telescopes. And there will be, you can ask questions if you want. We're going to start with my telescope, which is a 15-inch obsession ultra compact. This is a Dobsonian telescope with a truss tube. There are trusses under this light shroud. The Dobsonian mount means that it's on essentially a lazy Susan. The base turns and it goes up and down so you can get it to point anywhere you want. This mount was come up with by a gentleman named John Dobson out in San Francisco. He wanted to be able to take astronomy to the people, so he made telescopes out of cardboard tubes and the windows from ships, porthole windows. And this is a very nice, basic way. This is a way to get a lot of aperture for not a lot of money. It works this way. There's a mirror under here. It's a basic Newtonian reflector. So the primary mirror catches the light and it brings it up to the secondary mirror, which takes that light and sends it out to the eyepiece, which is where you observe. In order to find what you're looking at, this is my finder. This is a Telrad. It shoots a couple of red circles on the sky. You line that up when you start. And then when you look through here, whatever is in the center of this is what will be in your eyepiece. Nothing like losing your, so that's basically how it works. It's very easy. You line up, you move. This will show you, a telescope this big will show you pretty much anything you want to see. I can see not just the clouds on Jupiter and the moons, but I can see the texture in them. I can see the shadow of Jupiter's moons going across the face. I can see Saturn. Saturn is phenomenal. You can see the rings. You can see the Cassini division. You can see the shadow of Saturn's rings. It is really a joy to go out and look at the sky, even if you don't know what you're looking at, to go out. There is so much beauty out there, and to be in the peace and the quiet. If you can get to the country where it's dark with your telescope and look, it's just lovely to be out there. And then again, there are nights when you're out, like sort of like we are here now with a bunch of people, but you're outside. And you're with your friends and you're sharing views. It is really a joy. Does anybody have any questions? No? Okay, well, I'm going to move it down the line to Jurgen. I'll let you take. Hopefully someone will have questions at some point.
Hi, my name is Jurgen Patau. I've been a 20-odd year, I started in astronomy, amateur astronomy, when I was about 10. My dad bought a telescope. Oh, I should say I'm also treasurer of the Madison Astronomical Society. I started in astronomy when I was about 10 or 12 years old. My dad bought a small telescope, and we got fascinated just looking and tracing the movement of the moons of Jupiter. Even with a 2-inch telescope, we could do that. The telescope I have here is actually a higher end telescope. I will say that up front. This telescope is made by a company called Astrophysics down in the Chesney Park down in Illinois, outside Rockford. He makes high-end telescopes. This is my present for retirement, which is why I have it. It is a refractor. It is 92 millimeter. That's the diameter of the lens in the front. And that 92 millimeter lens gives me about the role of the lens in the front and the mirror in the telescopes is to gather light. That's its only purpose, is to gather as much light as you can. Late at night for a young kid, this thing brings you about 170 times more light than your eyeballs will see. What that simply gathers the light, it forms an image back here, and the eyepiece is what actually does the magnification. This is an example of an eyepiece. There are many eyepieces. This is actually a pretty bulky one. With this, I can get a magnification of around 20 with this telescope. I can see, with this telescope, I can see Jupiter, I can see Saturn, I can see all the planets. It's pretty much a wide field telescope, so by sweeping across the sky, I can get some very nice views of a lot of things. It covers several degrees of the sky, so if you want to figure out degrees of the sky, I think the moon is what, 1 degree? I always forget, is it 1 degree or half a degree? Anybody remember? Somebody do the arithmetic. So the moon actually will be within the field of view, the entire moon, with a wide field eyepiece. With a more powerful eyepiece, I can actually focus in on parts of the moon. You can see the colors on Jupiter. You can see the rings of Saturn when they're aligned properly. You can see double stars. You can see a lot of the things that Chris talked about. The difference is they're not as bright. Telescope like this that I have here actually was designed for astrophotography, which means basically that you want to put a camera on it. And while I'm fumbling, I can take this out. And I have here a simple Sony camera with a replaceable lens. I can stick this in here in the back, and I can take pictures. It actually works very well. If you want to go into taking photographs that are more esoteric, this is an example of a small camera that's called actually a planetary camera, or viewfinder camera, that will take nice pictures of Jupiter, Saturn, and pretty small objects in the sky. Extra cost. This is a mount that's called an alt-az mount. That means that it doesn't have any guiding at all. I can point it anywhere I want. That's a good thing, because guess what? It does not take electricity. You can take this out and take it into a field, set it up, and start looking. Most of the other telescopes, other than Chris's, and a couple down there, I guess, will need electricity either through a battery pack or something else. The thing about an alt-az mount is you have to be able to know what's in the sky and where things are. I'm very bad at that. I am helped by a lot of applications that run on, guess what? An iPhone. Helps me find what's in the sky. I have actually, at home, I have the type of mount you'll see down there that allows me to track this automatically and do photography. But other than that, I like small telescopes because they're grab and go. It was what I was brought up with. The guidance I read about when I was looking to get back into telescopes was buy what you're going to use. It turns out a big telescope for me is too bulky. This is a personal choice. And so that's why I like small telescopes. Thanks.
I'm Keith Swartz, and I have a few different types of telescopes that I'd like to show you. This is the very first telescope that I got. I got it for Christmas when I was in 5th grade. It's a refracting telescope. It has a lens at the end that's about 1 inch in diameter. This other type is a reflecting telescope. It has a mirror down on the bottom here that's about 4 inches in diameter. So it's more like Chris's telescope. And what's kind of unique about this is the ball and socket mount. I can move it like this, it'll stay. Move it like this, it'll stay. The telescope that I use most of the time is this homemade thing over here, where the tube is homemade. it's a combination of both types of telescopes. This top one here is a small refractor, and I use that to find things. And once I get that lined up, then I can see it in the bigger telescope. The bigger telescope is a reflecting type and has a 10-inch mirror down at the bottom, and then another mirror on the side to reflect up to the eyepiece over here. The solar filter that I have on here is like the glasses that you see at eclipses. It's the same kind of material. It's just a bigger sheet. And I sandwich it between some cardboard, and it's just Velcroed on here. So it's really easy to take on and off. What's unique about this tube here is that it packs up real compactly. A couple of years ago, I bought a car, and my telescope didn't fit in the car. And so I got creative and thought about, how can I get this to fit in the car? I thought about, ways maybe I can fold it up or roll it up. But I came up with this box within a box kind of idea. It's a telescoping telescope, which is kind of neat. To get the mirrors lined up, I have a laser that I shine in there. And I added some knobs on the adjustment knobs so that I can adjust it without any tools. So I can turn the knobs here, when I have gloves on. I'm not fumbling around with tools in the dark and in the cold. Let's see. What else? Made out of wood. The top of this is marker board, so I can draw pictures on here if I want to. But the most important thing about that is that it's waterproof. So when there's a lot of dew, that'll keep the dew off of the mirrors. My eyepiece setup, I have a zoom lens, so I can just twist it and zoom in and out. And I use it in combination with this other lens here. And so with just these two things, I have a magnification range of 50 to almost 400. And with the zoom, I get everything in between too. And so when I'm ready to pack up, the eyepiece stores in here. This Barlow lens that effectively doubles the magnification stores in here. And I got a bag for some filters here. And the focuser is on a hinge, comes up like this. This comes off, hinges down. This comes inside. Put it like that. Unlatch it. This slides in. Another thing I did here was I had this little bag to keep all my lens caps in. I keep track of them. I have a little bit of Velcro, and it Velcros onto the base there. And this bag is the cover for the secondary mirror. And to protect the big mirror down at the bottom, I've got it's a piece of styrofoam, covered with felt to protect the mirror. And you have these ribbons with little bits of Velcro. I'll hold it on there. That's an altitude azimuth mount, just like some of the others that you've already seen. Pretty slick. A little bit about my setup here. I'm kind of old-fashioned and use star charts. I made this box as well too. I've got red lights here, just turn it on with the light switch. And instead of taking pictures, I do some sketches. That's my setup.
Hey. Good evening. My name is Kevin Santulis. I'm Vice President of the Madison Astronomical Society. And tonight I wanted to show you our first telescope that we got over 10 years ago, and we're still using it, and we're very happy with it. And this is a Schmidt Cassigrain telescope. And what you're seeing here just to give you an idea, is the light from what you're observing in the sky is going to be coming in this way. And you'll see there's a mirror in the back of this that reflects back to this knob here, and there's a correcting mirror that will bring it back to this eyepiece, and you'll look through this eyepiece. And what this means is, in this very compact package, you have a focal length of around 2,000 millimeters. And that would be the equivalent, if it wasn't constructed this way, of having a telescope about this big. Obviously, as you heard, that to carry this out into the field or to go to a dark sky site where you can do a lot of nice observing, this is much easier to carry than that, and which is one of the best features of the Schmidt Cassigrain. It's very good for both deep sky and for planetary observing. You can get beautiful pictures of the moon, of the planets, the moons of Jupiter. You can see great pictures of Andromeda galaxy, or the closest galaxy, and a lot of features out there. And as you heard, there's a lot of people that will learn the sky and know where to go in the sky to find these objects. If you're not one of those people, this can be very handy to have a go-to. And you may have heard, I think Jurgen mentioned a go-to before. And let me tell you what a go-to is. As you're observing, the Earth is moving, obviously. And what you're observing in the sky, if you just point your telescope at it, 5 minutes later, it's going to be over here. It's not going to be in your view. And what this does for a go-to is you have to align your telescope, tell it where it is on the planet Earth, and tell it what day and time it is. And there's a computer in here that catalogs all the different features in the sky. And you first have to align the telescope to tell it all that information. But we found some shortcuts for that, which you can do a lot faster. This little gizmo on the side here is actually a camera, and this is called the Star Sense. When I say I want it to align, it will start this camera up and start taking pictures of the sky. I can get it to go here. There it goes. And what it's doing is it's looking for the stars. Obviously, it's not going to find very many stars here under Monona Terrace. But if it was outside, it would find the pictures of stars over here, and it's actually more sensitive than your eyes are. And it will come back and say, I found a bunch of stars here, and then it will go to another section of the sky, found a bunch of stars here. And then once it's satisfied, it will stop and it will say, hey, I'm ready. And once it knows where it is and what everything is in the sky, you can actually take this handset and say, hey, I want to look at solar system items here. I want to see where Mars is. Or better yet, I want to see what is up tonight. What can I see in the sky? And you can say, show me what I can look at tonight. And it will say Mars is up, Jupiter is up, Saturn is up, the moon is up. And do you want to see any of those things? And you can select this, and this will go directly to that object. You want to see some deep sky objects. You want to see this particular cluster of stars. You can program that in either by Messier object. All the different catalogs of stars are actually all programmed in here. And because it has the GPS on it right here, you don't have to tell it where it is on planet Earth, so it knows that too. Once you have that there, you can actually say, the other feature is if you're looking and you find something, you're not sure exactly what it is in the sky, you're moving your telescope around manually, and you see something, you can actually press a button, you say, tell me what that is. And it will actually try to identify it for you. And if it's in its catalog, it will find it. So those are the things you can do with a go-to on a telescope like this. And we have a lot of fun with it, mainly for observing, but you can also put a camera on this and do some astrophotography too. But understand, you don't always need to have a telescope. You can do some marvelous astrophotography and observing even without a telescope. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to my wife, Carol.
Hi, I'm Carol Santulis. I've been a member of MAS for 10 years. And the 8-inch Schmidt Cassigrain, that was my first telescope. I still use it. I've added a few more since then, But what I like to do most is astronomy with a camera, just a regular mirrorless or DSLR camera. And when you do it with a camera, you need long exposures. You're shooting in a dark environment. With long exposures, you get star trailing. So your stars aren't pinpoint, they're elongated, and it doesn't make them look sharp. So the way around that is to use a star tracker. And this wonderful little lightweight gizmo will move the camera, and it will rotate the camera at the same speed that the stars are moving across the sky. And that allows me to take up to 5-minute photos instead of a 20-second photo. And that's a lot more photons I'm capturing on my sensor. I shoot with a wide angle lens sometimes. This is a medium telephoto, 28 to 75 millimeters. I do a lot of astrophotography with this. And then I'm now working with a 400 millimeter lens. It's a zoom lens, 100 to 400 millimeters, but I use 400 millimeters if I'm going to put this lens on. This is a lot heavier lens. When I use this lens, I am going to have to add a declination bracket onto the setup. It has a counterweight, the camera's on this end, and it needs a counterweight because that's a fairly heavy lens. So this will go on your tripod, and the ball head that you took off your tripod, it now goes on the tracker. And then when your camera goes on the ball head, it'll start rotating. And this has different tracking speeds, so I can have it set for sun, moon, or stars, and it'll track at different rates. It's fairly accurate if I can get a 5-minute image. The more telephoto it is, I might be down to a 4-minute at the most. If you're interested in star trackers, there's a lot of information on YouTube. That's where I learned most of my most of the work that I do with star trackers is from YouTube videos. And I have a few photos to show of the work that I've done with this. The first photo is 35 millimeters. The second photo, this is near the core of the Milky Way in the summer. That's 50 millimeters. This one is at 75 millimeters. And this is the center of the Milky Way at 75 millimeters also. The core is down on the lower left-hand side. And this one is the Lagoon Nebula, again, in that same area of the Milky Way, taken at 400 millimeters. This is Pleiades, the Seven Sisters. That was taken with the 400 millimeter lens. This is Orion Nebula. That was also taken with the 400 millimeter lens. And this is my favorite, my Andromeda shot that was 400 millimeter. And this is actually stacked images, multiple images stacked to get more detail out of them. And that's all. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Avtar Roopra, and I'm a member of the Madison Area Astronomical Society. What you've seen this evening is in some ways a progression of technology. You've seen a hand-operated Dobsonian telescope, very large, and it can move around the sky as you push it around. You can see almost anything you want to see. And then we've progressed through to some of the most sophisticatedly automated telescopes like Kevin showed with the star tracker and the GPS unit. And then Carol displayed some of the most amazing photography you can get with modern cameras and lenses. But the original astronomers, the people who first looked up at the sky 10, 20, 30,000 years ago, they had no equipment. They just had their eyes. And I can guarantee that nobody 20,000 years ago was looking at the sky like this. Nobody was looking with one eye. They used both eyes, right? But they had no equipment. And so for me, the whole point of astronomy is to fire up the imagination. And when you do that, what you don't want is to worry about your equipment. The equipment gives you amazing details. It gives you amazing photographs, and you can see things which you would never otherwise see. But sometimes you just want to look. And when you look, you want to look with two eyes. So one of my favorite observing pieces of apparatus is this thing here. It's the Orion telescope binocular or binocular telescope. It's really just two telescopes strapped together and made into a pair of binoculars. And you can use two eyes, like so, and you can look at anything in the sky and just move around by just pushing and pulling. It requires no power, no electricity, no technology other than the ability to just build this mount and move it around. The advantage of this is you can forget about the technology. When you start observing, it's just you and the stars. And if you do it right, and you're looking like this, you forget about the mount, you forget about the binoculars, you forget about the telescopes, you forget about the electronics. It's just you looking at something in the sky. And that really allows you to fire up the imagination. So with this, you get large swathes of sky. It's not a very high-powered telescope or pair of binoculars, but it's powerful enough that you can see galaxies and star clusters, star-forming regions and nebulae, and you can see beautiful features on the moon. You can see the moons of Jupiter. But the most important thing is you're using both eyes. Your face is relaxed. You're not going to get fatigued or tired. And you're unlimited by a database. You're unlimited by what you may know, because what you do is you just point up and just start moving around. If you're in a dark area and you see the Milky Way, you don't need to know what the features are. You can just point this thing at the Milky Way and start looking. And you're going to come across star fields and star clusters and nebulae that you've no idea about. But with modern technology like the iPhone and apps you can get for that, you can ask, well, what is that feature that I'm looking at right now? And with a couple of seconds of aligning, you know that you're looking at a star-forming region. You know you're looking at the Orion Nebula or a star cluster somewhere off the plane of the Milky Way. It's all about imagination for me. So one of the most formative images I remember seeing in the cinema and watching on TV was a scene from Empire Strikes Back, Star Wars. It was right at the end. If you remember, you Star Wars nerds out there, Luke Skywalker was having his hand repaired. He was on a medical frigate, and he was on this frigate, and the view at the frigate was a Millennium Falcon moving away and diving down onto this huge spiral galaxy. And with something like this, when you're observing a star cluster like the M13 star cluster, which is way out there off the plane of the Milky Way, I think it's 26,000 light years away. That is right on the edge of our galaxy. And if you were around there somewhere and you were to look back, you would see that view from a medical frigate. You would see our galaxy spiraled out, and you can imagine just dropping down and visiting that place. And that's what something like this allows you to do. It allows you to forget about the technology and just let your imagination go wild, because you've got both eyes open. You don't see the mount, you don't see the binoculars, you just see the sky. And when you see the M13 star cluster as this ball of stars out of the plane of the Milky Way, it's about 26,000 light years away, you can imagine what the view must be there looking back at our galaxy. Because from there, you wouldn't see stars rising at night. You'd see the entire Milky Way coming up over the horizon. And when it's time for the sun to rise, you don't see one sun. You'd see 100,000 blazing suns coming up over the horizon. And that's why I like looking through things like this, because it allows me to forget the technology and it allows me just to let my imagination run wild. So thank you very much for listening.